Welcome to Every Trade, the pro biopunk philosophy channel. You may call me ZJ for now, and we are still in phase 1, pop culture. What we're going to be doing for the next few videos is rewrites. Rewrites of characters in pop culture that are gene mods or otherwise could be made into them for a different story. We're going to be starting with the Lizard from Marvel, Curtis Connors. What would he be like in the real world? And we're going to be focusing more on the movie version than the comics. Now, in the comics, they have made it more nuanced, more complicated, but in the movies, well, he accidentally became a lizard, and then he tried to turn everyone into lizards, as you do. So there's no reason for it. The reason why he did that is so he would be the bad guy. Because if he just turned himself into that and then went on to live his life and didn't hurt anyone, and then Spider-Man showed up to beat him up, Spider-Man would be the bad guy, right? So they had to make him into the bad guy, and how does he do that? By making him just suddenly decide he wants to turn everyone into lizards. And this is how genetics is usually treated in fiction. Geneticists are almost always villains, especially if they're doing anything that's not in the status quo. The status quo instinct is a very old instinct in humanity. It goes all the way back to the lizard brain, oddly enough, to the pre-mammal state. Think about it. If you're trying to survive and you have all the food you need and you have shelter, you have everything you need to survive, even if it's just barely, why would you see what's over the next horizon? Your instincts are to stay where you are. And that status quo instinct is becoming the bane of humanity. It is making it very difficult for humanity to make any progress in technology in any way that would cause real change. And so we can't really tolerate this in fiction. It can't be like every single person doing cutting edge technology always turns out to be a villain. Gene mods in fiction are only good guys if they were made that way accidentally, like Spider-Man, or if they hate their creator, like Rocket. They can't be someone who just was created, likes that they were created, likes the people who created them, and is a hero. Except maybe Kipo, I don't know. But that's not really a thing usually. So we're going to try to rewrite him to be a more realistic version. So first of all, his arm falling off when the serum wears off, that doesn't make any sense. Your DNA doesn't code for you missing an arm when you lose an arm. So it should stay there and just be a lizard arm. So we'll go with that. So it's different than the rest of his body, the DNA. So it's got tissue rejection. And so he has to make a choice. He has to either remove the arm manually or spread the process to the rest of his body. And he chooses to do the latter. Now, he wants to continue the research to find a way to help people without turning them into lizards. And some people actually help him do this. Some tech pros, some people who are into biopunk, they move him to a compound with security so that he won't be attacked for being a freak. And they give him some staff. But he works a little slow for them because he's only using what I call true volunteers. A true volunteer is someone who's not paid or coerced, someone who's not desperate, someone who's not being offered a commuted sentence, someone who genuinely wants to volunteer. So he looks for people who are missing parts of their body, and he also would not mind being lizard people. In a world of 8 billion people, you'd be able to find a few. In a world of 8 billion people, he finds 6. One backs out, chickens out. One disappears mysteriously on the way, probably from someone who doesn't like the lizard. 2 of the remaining ones become lizards, and the third one just gets thin scales but otherwise stays human and regrows their limb. The final one regrows her leg and remains entirely human. Later on, she actually is depressed because she actually wanted to be that. She had some sort of instinct form disconnect. So she actually wanted to be that other form. And so he eventually relents and allows her to become like them. But he publishes his findings. He publishes it in an official periodical, and the technology begins to sort of become known. But before he can do that, Spider-Man does show up, because this is, of course, a Spider-Man story. And Spider-Man tries to stop him, even though he's not technically doing anything unethical, because everyone he's using is a true volunteer. Everyone fully knows the risks. Everyone is even quizzed on the risks to make sure they know them, etc., etc. But in this story, Spider-Man is a self-deprecating gene mod. He doesn't like that that's what he is. He doesn't like other people who are that. And so he's trying to stop more from being created. But because there are, if you're counting at this point, 4 lizards and 1 like light version, he's overpowered. Plus the security of the place. What happens next is the lizard gets called to Congress to testify about the technology. And Congress does what it always does in these testimonies. They ask questions that are themselves lies. Yes, a question can be a lie. The question can be so loaded or so misleading that it itself is a lie. So since he says it can make a normal person not turn into a lizard, but still regrow their limbs, they asked, where is that person? Now, they know full and well that she chose to become a lizard later. But they also know that the audience doesn't know that. They know the people watching at home don't know that. And so they deliberately ask the question in that way. And if the lizard tries to explain what happened, they just roll their eyes. They act like they don't believe him. They know he's telling the truth. But that's not the point of these hearings. If you've ever watched these hearings, you know what I'm talking about. They just ask questions that are themselves lies in order to try to get a good soundbite. They don't care what the answers are given. They just want to ask the questions. So they end up getting enough sound bites to get the public on board with making the technology illegal, which means it's now illegal to regrow a lost limb. So what happens next is the lizards all retire to a compound somewhere in the swamp. They make money on social media. They are unique. People will watch. And they pretty much keep to themselves. The lizard basically retires from science because he was drummed out. But something interesting happens a little bit later. The technology ends up being dumped on the dark web. And the reason this happens is one of the assistants, or maybe one of the tech bros, who was helping the lizard. And so people start being able to regrow their limbs in secret underground. And what they end up doing is they end up putting fake prosthetic casings over their real limbs. So if people already knew they were missing an arm, they just have a fake arm casing that makes it look like they have a prosthetic, even though they have an actual arm. So this way they can get away with it, basically. And so the technology does begin to spread. It's really hard to actually contain technology once it's developed. But that, I think, makes for a much more interesting story, because in this case, the geneticist is actually the good guy. And the people trying to stop him are actually the bad guys. And so this isn't something you see in fiction normally. There's pretty much a moratorium against stories like this because of the status quo instinct. Most people are ruled by their instincts. Most people, me included, everyone, will accept fallacious arguments that fits their instincts and reject logical ones that don't. This has been proven. So, yeah, people are blind to their instincts and they will blindly push for status quo, even if it results in a worse future for themselves and their children. So, this is the kind of stories that we need to have instead of the same old geneticist is a bad guy, geneticist wants to take over the world nonsense that we see over and over and over again. We need some variety in our stories. And the next couple videos will also be rewrites in the similar vein. Thank you for listening. I have been ZJ, and remember, always gene mod responsibly. Clicky, 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 clicky.